All right, let's talk Los Angeles Rams. It's been one heck of an offseason for the Rams. A lot of big time moves, a lot of smart moves, but as free agency is kind of slowing down pretty dramatically here, all eyes now turn towards the draft, and there's a number of absolutely perfect fits the Rams could target. We got a list of some great ones for you today. So without further ado, Mize, I will hand it over to you. Get us going with this first set of really smart fits the Rams should and probably will go after.
Yeah, Nick, I think the Rams are a really good spot here. Even though they're at 26, I think, this is a draft where they can get some really good pieces to this team. And we broke down a list of some candidates we think. And the first grouping of guys I have two cornerback prospects for this Ram team that I think is really good. They're about middle of the pack in coverage last year, 60.6 grade for the Rams. They could really use an upgrade. We know they went out and got a safety in free agency. Now they could use a corner to help out there. Let's get into the first guy. I really think these two guys are both, you know, not guys that you get at 26. I think if no one is there, I think these are guys more that you can trade back out of their round, very high second round to low first round guys. These are guys that you could trade back, get some draft capital because the Rams need it. But Trey Amos from Ole Miss is the guy that I'm looking at first. I really like what he brings to the table. 23 years old. He's 6'1, 180 pounds. And this guy had a really solid season, and he's just great overall. He has 85.6 PFF overall grade. He had an 85.6 PFF coverage grade, and he had an 81 PFF run defense grade. The guy was very solid in run defense as well. I think just overall, this guy is really good. He has a good blend of size, speed, he has a lot of good movement. He's a guy that can do a lot of different coverages. He was great in man coverage and zone coverage. If you break those two down like separately, he was in the high 70s in both man and zone coverage. He can fit any scheme. Just really a do it all type of cornerback. I really like Trey Amos, but shortly after Amos, I think there's another guy that's really interesting as well. And my number two guy is Siobhan Ravel from East Carolina University. I think this is more of, an, a riskier pick, but it has a really high ceiling. Ravel was hurt last year, didn't play all of the season. I think that's why he slid in the rankings. He had a really great 2023 as well. But this guy, he is an athletic freak. You look at what he brings to the table here 6'3, 193 pounds, 22 years old. He's got an 84 overall grade, 85.4 coverage grade, and a 70 run defense grade. Still great at run defense as well. But this guy, he is just very, very athletic. And I think if he falls and you're able to grab him, his speed, what he brings to the table, his explosiveness, his ability to be just a strong athlete, it's going to make him very underrated. The injury, he'll probably fall down to that high second round range. Could be a really strong pickup for this Rams team in the secondary. But nonetheless, Nick, back to you. What do you think about these two cornerback options for the Rams?
So I think it's just all about your strategy if you're the Rams. Amos is much more the steady Eddie, right? It's the high floor, the low ceiling. He's a guy that's a good, solid player, really good at everything. You brought up his PFF grades, a lot of experience. Did a really nice job jumping from the Sun Belt early in his career up to the SEC. That's nice to see. That's hard to do. It shows to me that he's likely to come in and be an early contributor to the NFL. He jumped from the Sun Belt Conference to the SEC. Theoretically, he could jump from the SEC to the National Football League with a relatively similar ease of transition. That's obviously a really good thing. And I think overall, he's more of a complete player, like a day one, slide him in, and your defensive backfield's a lot better. And again, his PFF grades all in the mid 80s, overall 85, coverage 86, run defense 81. Just really solid, good height across the board, good, solid day one contributor, upgrades your defensive backfield. But when you look at Revel, I think to me it's more the art of the possible because he has some weird things about him where you see one game or one play, he looks like the next Richard Sherman, and the next play he just looks like a guy who's a little lost. He's got the physical nature, he's really tall, he can run and cover with the best of them sometimes. He does have the injury concern, played at a little bit lower tier conference. There's a lot of question marks when it comes to this kid, but I tell you what, when he's at his peak, when he's at his best, he looks like a first team all pro. So he's literally the exact opposite. He is a super high ceiling, really low floor. And if I'm the Los Angeles Rams and I feel like I'm in a title window opportunity right now, as much as I'm tempted in Revel and what he could bring into the fold, I think Amos is the guy, right? Especially if you trade back and get some draft capital. You're in a title run right now. Don't be so hyper aggressive. It's not like you're in a total rebuild. Your secondary definitely needs some help. You definitely need some more pieces on that department. You've got everything you need in terms of the front four in spades. They're absolutely redonkulous up front. Get a solid, steady, consistent corner that's played against some good competition, that's good all around, can cover, can play against the run, can tackle. Is his potential through the roof? Amos's potential? No. Is it as close big as Rebels? No, not even remotely close. But I tell you what, it just isn't worth the risk for a team that's trying to vie for a championship. If you were a team that's say like the Arizona Cardinals that is still trying to get over the hump a little bit, I'd say be a little bit more aggressive. Now, there are some people that take the opposite approach. They say, listen, you're already a good team, be hyper aggressive. When you have an older quarterback, though, I want to take a step back. You only have so many years with Matthew Stafford. You want to make sure your team is as day one competitive in terms of day one of the regular season competitive as possible. That's why I like Amos. Now, when you're talking about being ready day one, I think a position a lot of people were concerned about last year, hopefully feel a little bit better about this year's offensive tackle with obviously Alaric Jackson getting a steal and Havenstein coming back. But there are definitely long-term concerns for the Rams at tackle, and that's why offensive tackle is a key position potentially for the Rams to address. And let's go into our first guy here. This is an interesting prospect, a great name, Gray Zabel or Zabel. I'm not exactly sure. I think it's Zabel. He's from North Dakota State University. They're obviously one of the big powerhouses, if not the powerhouse in Division One AA FCS. It now goes by FCS. You old heads, of course, will remember as D1 AA. Look, he's got all the measurables. He's 6'6", 300 pounds. His grades there are off the charts. He's just a really, really good football player. The name of the game with this kid is positional versatility. He can play anywhere. He's played 4 or 5 positions. He's been a first-team All-American at the FCS level. They're one of the best programs probably in football history in terms of what North Dakota State has done. He can slide into a phenomenal job. As good as FCS is, though, and as good as North Dakota State is, there is the concern that the competition is going to be not one step better in the NFL. It's going to be 2 steps better. But if you look at the Rams, like I mentioned, with 2 quality tackles already, veteran guys, they're looking for a guy to maybe develop and replace him while also adding key depth across the offensive line. It's hard to do worse than Gray from North Dakota State. I just love the name and just all the energy of people from this program. But there is another interesting guy out there that I think Rams fans should really get to know, and that's Josh Conerly Jr. He's from the University of Oregon. This kid to me has a chance to be an absolute superstar tackle. We saw him at the end of the college football season go one-on-one against Abdul Carter, the all-world player from Penn State. He'll likely be a top 5 pick. It'll be shocking if he falls outside the top 5. He looks like the next Micah Parsons. And Conerly did a really, really good job at him in the biggest possible moment. And I tell you what, this is a kid in Conerly who was kind of not really much of a net guy for a while. Then he just got better. And he just got better. And he just kind of figured it out. And he just got better. And he got more reps. And he just became just an elite player overnight. And he continues to get better and better. If you look at his grades there, you kind of see what I'm saying. Like his overall is 78, which isn't terrible, but it's not elite. Run blocking is only 73. Pass blocking is better, is 84. He's 6'4", 315 pounds. He's only 21 years old. This is a kid that just finds a way to just get better and better and better. And to me, if he can continue on this trend, which I think he probably will, he becomes a first-team All-Pro. He becomes an anchor of your offensive line for a decade and a half. And I think that's the question the Rams are faced with if they decide to go tackle. Both the guys I mentioned here will probably be late first-round picks. They would have to pick one of these guys at 26. I think that's undeniable unless something really funky happens here over the course of the draft. If they decide to go tackle in the first round here, they have to make another really critical decision. Do they go the North Dakota State prospect, the guy who looks like he could eventually be a superstar and add immediate positional depth and maybe not be the all-world tackle, be a really good player, just a good physical run blocker to be a powerful force at the point of attack? Or do you go with the future all-pro pass protector and Conerly here? That's exactly the situation the Rams are going to be faced with. To me, I personally lean Conerly. I love guys that are on the upswing as much as I love Gray Zabel, and I think he's got a great future ahead of him. When guys are improving as much as Conerly has, I think you can't turn that down. I look at this Rams team, and if you look at their pass blocking grade, especially when they had some injuries, it fell in the dumps. I feel like this running block, this running scheme, this blocking scheme with McVay, of course, running the whole show on offense, they can kind of figure things out. We saw them do it with a guy like Bo Limmer, for example, for a period of time due to injuries. They can run the ball almost regardless of who's playing offensive line. They had a lot of troubles pass protecting when they had injuries. I personally look at Connerly as the long-term answer at one of the tackle positions. However, it works out, probably having signed whenever he decides to leave and go on his merry way. I think Connerly, to me, is the move to make at 26 if you go tackle.
Yeah, Nick, I tend to agree with you. I think both these tackles are really interesting here. And when you look at these guys, I think what they bring to the table, Zabel is a, more developmental piece. And we've seen guys out of North Dakota State before. We see Cody Mock at the Bucks. He came in year one. He did okay. I think he has up and down. He showed flashes, but last year he did really well. I think he graded out last year at like a 74 overall PFF grade. So he took him a little bit of time to like you said, adjust to the game, get ready, be available. But I think the one thing about Zabel for me is this is a guy who he's played everywhere, but he's not maybe like a cemented tackle specialist. He's not the guy that come in and play tackle day one right away, and that's what you're looking for. Because I think this offensive line for the Rams, it looks really good. Dotson has been a phenomenal player for them. Avila has been a really great player. Larry Jackson's got the deal, like you said. They bring in Coleman Shelton back to play center again. I think he's going to do a good job. So the only question mark you have is Havenstein. He's great, but at age of pretty much 33 years old, he's about to turn 33 here. He's getting older, going into his 10th NFL season. This is a guy that really, you got to think about it, how much future is left here. And I think when you got a guy like Josh Connerly Jr. here from Oregon, he could slot in as a surefire tackle prospect. That's why I lean more towards a guy like Connerly over a guy like Gray Zabel. Again, great name, can't deny that. But I tend to like that option there specifically because it's very topical. It's very, Rams good fit. Zabel is overall, if you had a questionable offensive line and you needed a guy, you weren't exactly sure where you needed him to go, I'd pick Zabel all day. I think he's a guy who come in, really could fit in anywhere. But Connerly, he's a guy, you know what you need. It's at the tackle position. Bring him in, plug him in there. Big time college football level coming out of Oregon. Been in championship level games before. We know what he's able to do. I really like that fit there for Rams here. But going to the final grouping of players we have, another guy you need to think about the future here. Tyler Higbee, getting a little bit older as well. About to be 33 years old again for a tight end. Pass catching tight end. You want him to do really well, and he's been okay. In 2019, he had a really big year. 2020 through 2023 hit a whole lot of meh. Last year in 2024 had another big year receiving the ball as well. But you got to think about the future here, I think. And we've got two great options. First up is if you're in round one and this guy falls to you, I think you got to take him. Colston Loveland out of Michigan. I think he's a fantastic player. He's 20 years old, really young, great future pick here. 6'5", 245 pounds, really great size. But overall, this guy is a receiving phenom, an 85.9 overall grade, a 90.6 receiving grade. He is a weapon coming off the field in the receiving game. A little bit lower run blocking grade, 53.3. You're probably going to have to work on him there, put on a little bit of size, gain 10, 15 pounds, get this guy and his blocking skills up. But this guy is a weapon for Stafford. You bring him into this offense, I think immediately he's going to be somebody that you're looking forward making big plays out of the tight end position. I really like Colston Loveland as a guy that you could come round one if he falls to you there at 26. I think he's the guy. I think that he's a really solid player and a guy that you got to scoop up. But my second pick I have is maybe a round two pick. If no one's there, you trade back to round two. I have a really good selection for them as well, and that's Elijah Arroyo out of Miami, another really solid player here. I think that he's less polished, less, top end type of guy than Colston Loveland is, but at 6'4", 245, really good size, 21 years old, a young guy again. He's a decent grade, 71.7 overall grade, 73.6 receiving grade, and a 61.3 run blocking grade. A little bit better run blocking grade there for Arroyo. I just think that this guy is good. I think he's a consistent blocker. I think he's a good receiver. I think he can line up all around at Miami. He's a wingback. He went in the slot. He did a lot of different things. I just think that this guy is a good fit for a value in the second round. Really good pickup. again, lean Loveland if he's there at 26, but if he's not and you have to trade back, I think Arroyo is a really solid selection.
Yeah, and I think Colston Loveland, I think if he falls to you, I think you have to get him because he has the Sam Laporta, he has that Brock Bowers, just he transforms your offense pretty much immediately. Now the question is if he's available, the Rams pick him. That's obviously a big question mark. Let's just assume for the sake of argument that he's not, because if he is, it's an easy decision. You talk about Arroyo falling into the second, or the Rams trading into the second round if Arroyo falls, if they want to go get him. I think the value here when it comes to Arroyo is if he falls to the Rams at 90 in the third round. Because when it comes to this kid, there's basically two opinions. One is that he is nothing. He's a day three pick. He's really a flyer. You're not going to get much out of him. And then there's some people from some schools that say he is one of the more complete tight ends in this entire class. You talk about a willing blocker. He was known for being a willing blocker at Miami. His coaches loved it. His teams loved it. He was still a productive receiver as well as final season Miami caught, 35 balls, 590 for 7 touchdowns, 16.9 yards per catch while being a willing blocker in the running game. That's a kind of a complete player. You can slide into any offense. I guarantee you, Sean McVay, he wants a tight end who can block with his Rams zone scheme. They rely a lot on the tight end, whether in motion to kick people out or to seal the backside. It is critical that you at least be a willing blocker, and probably even just as important, you have to be good at it. And Arroyo is good at it. So I think from that perspective, it's a really nice fit. But this is a guy here who's got kind of that it factor potentially. He had 2 seasons of his career, 2022 and 2023, just devastated with injuries. Going into 2024, he wasn't on anyone's draft radar. It was essentially he was a nobody, right? No one was going to pick him. He was no one. He was even a guy that was going to be anybody. And then he has a really nice season, and his film looks really good. Miami has a really good season, and suddenly people are starting to notice that this kid can really play. And I think that's a real question for the Los Angeles Rams. And I think it's more of a decision at 90. I don't know if you trade out of the first round and he's available in the middle or late second. If you go get him then, that still may be a little reach for me. It just depends on how you feel. But I guarantee you, if he's there at 90, that's just as big as if Colson Loveland's there at 26. I think it's the same kind of value. Arroyo is the kind of guy that if things click, if the injury issues are behind him and he just continues to get better as a receiver, he'll come in and be a key contributor, kind of one of these under the radar players that just does all the nitty gritty things that people don't notice. The blue collar guy who doesn't have to catch a lot of balls as a tight end, but when he does, he can make big plays while also being a great blocker. Because remember, this Rams offense, right? It's going to go through Nakua throwing the football. It's going to go through Devontae Adams, right? Whoever they get at tight end, he's not going to come in and catch 100 passes. As much as I compare Colson Loveland to Brock Bowers, even though they're a little different, but in terms of impact, the reality is Loveland ain't catching as many balls as Bowers did last season, just because that's not how the Rams offense is structured with talent and scheme. So if the Rams kind of look at Loveland, or if Loveland's not there, which is again the most likely case, they're like, well, we still need a tight end of the future. I think Arroyo is the perfect fit because he's, again, good blocker, doesn't have to catch 150 balls, doesn't have to catch 150 targets, doesn't need more than 3 targets to be an effective player. And I just like guys that have overcome adversity. I really think that's important. The NFL is nothing but a consistent adversity challenge. And nothing against Colson Loveland. He's battled through his fair share as well. But I really think Arroyo, again, in the third round, if he falls that far, I think he's one of the great value guys. I think he's a steal of the draft kind of thing because he just has that it factor, that grittiness that I think could be a huge value to this Rams offense and to this entire locker room, to be honest. But now that we've wrapped out all our fits here for the Los Angeles Rams fans, the Ramley, if you will, in the comment section below, we really want to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on some of these fits? What are your thoughts on what you think the Rams will do with their draft selections? Are they going to make some trades, or who are they going to go after in the first round? We want to hear everything from you guys, so make sure you give us a comment in the comment section below. But until next time, I am Nick, that's Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection.